Alright, hello, Algebra 1. Let's see, yesterday you were working on factoring trinomials. So you were given a trinomial such as x squared plus 10x plus 21, and then you were to try to figure out what were the two factors that could be multiplied together to create that trinomial. So what you were doing yesterday is we were kind of doing like almost a guess and check method where we had to think of what two numbers could we multiply together to create that last term of your trinomial, that c, or that 21 in this case of the problem. What two numbers could multiply together to create 21? Oh, that's really big. Let's get that a little bit smaller. What numbers can multiply to create 21, but then add to create that middle number 10? So that was our little thing that you were working on yesterday. That's still really big. Let me fix that really quick. Change this to, there we go. Okay, so we were thinking of two numbers that multiplied to create 21, added to get 10. And then, so thinking of numbers that multiply to get 21, probably the ones that come to the top of your head are 7 and 3 are two numbers that multiply to get 21. If I think about it, 7 times 3 equals 21, and 7 plus 3 equals 10. So that makes sense that these two numbers would be my factors. So then from there you went x plus 7 and x plus 3 were your two factors. So that was pretty easy. And that's what we did yesterday after watching that Delta Math video. Now the thing is, this little trick here of thinking of two numbers that multiply to get my last term, add to get my middle term, this little trick for your factors only works, unfortunately, if that x squared number does not have a coefficient in front of it. So in this case, it's just x squared. This trick does not work, however, unfortunately, if I have a number in front of my x squared. So in this example, I have 5x squared. I believe this problem is on the back side of that factoring trinomials paper that you were hopefully given. So if you'd like to work on that along with this, you can follow along. So hopefully you were doing pretty good with having the with no number in front of the x squared, and just thinking two numbers that multiply to get the last term, add to get your middle term, and coming up with that factor. We're going to talk about what do I do if I have a number in front of that x squared. How do I go about solving these? And we are going to be using that box and diamond, or that box method that we were using to multiply these. We are going to use that working backwards to solve these a little bit. So you don't need the box if there's no number in front of your x squared, but you should use the box if there is a number in front of your x squared. And the reason this is different is essentially because of that x squared, it's changing those terms that when we fill in that box, that 5x squared is changing those terms of those two numbers that multiple or that add together in that middle by multiplying. That 5 is going to have to show up from somewhere, and it's going to have to multiply by something. So it's changing those terms. So it's no longer just two things that multiply to create this, add to get this. That 5 changes our problem. So what we're going to do when we encounter a trinomial with a number in front of the x squared, what we're going to do is we're going to draw our little box as we normally would with our multiplication. And then we are going to take that 5x squared and we are going to fill it into that top right or top left hand quadrant that it would normally be. So I'm going to put my 5x squared here like it normally is, and that -8, that last term, is going to go in our bottom right hand quadrant like it typically is. So typically when we get that box method, these two, the top right and the bottom left, these are the ones that add together to create that middle term. And then the x squared and the constant at the end are always in that top left and that bottom right. So we're just sort of filling in the box pre-box. without knowing those factors on the outside. Our goal is to get those factors on the outside once again. From here, I am now going to take my first term, my 5x squared, and my negative 8. I'm going to multiply those two together. So these two terms, I'm going to multiply these two together. This is going to be my new product. I'm no longer just looking at the negative 8. I'm multiplying these two together, and that is going to give me negative 40. Technically negative 40x squared, but negative 40 is now going to be my product. I'm no longer just sticking to that last term. I need to multiply that first term by the last term now. So negative 40 is going to be my product, and then my sum is still going to be that middle term of 6. So I have to think of two numbers that multiply to get negative 40, add to get 6. First off, I already noticed that I have a negative. So negative 40, I know one of those terms has to be positive, one of those terms has to be negative, which is fine. This shouldn't be too hard. So one term is positive, one term is negative. In order to multiply to get a negative. So some factors of 40, starting to do that little guess and check method. Some factors of 40, I could do 20 times 2. I could do 4 times 10. I could do 8 times 5. And I want to think, with one of these being negative, one of these being positive, is there any way that these can get to a sum of 6? And already I'm thinking, okay, 4 and 10, that set right there, I know I can get positive 6 if I have a, let's see, negative 4 times positive 10 equals negative 40, and negative 4 plus positive 10 equals 6. So I know negative 4 and positive 10 are going to be my two factors. But I'm not going to jump right away into x minus 4, x plus 10. I can't do that because I have this 5 up here. So what I need to do is I need to go back to my box, and I'm going to take these two terms, and they are going to fill in the other two boxes of my, or the other two spaces of my box. But because these things have to combine to give me my 6x, I need to make sure that both of these terms have that x involved in them. So this is going to be negative 4x, and this is going to be 10x. All right, now from here, I just need to figure out what it needs to go on the outside of the box. And on that practice you guys did last week, last Friday, you practiced a little bit about finding those terms that need to go on the outside of the box. I know the two things that multiply to create 5x squared has to be an x and an x at least. But one of those terms, because x times x is just x squared, one of those terms at least has to have a 5 in it. So I need to think, where does this 5 need to go? And I could kind of think, okay, does it matter which one it needs to go? Could I just put it here? Could I just put it here? It probably doesn't make a difference. Well, it actually kind of does, because if I put that 5 here, if I make this a 5x, I would then have to move on and think, okay, 5x times what creates negative 4x? And there is actually no integer that I can multiply by to create negative 4x. But if I were to swap these, 5x does multiply by something to create 10x. So I need to look at these rows, and that needs to help me determine which one does it go, because there is an incorrect choice and there is a correct choice sometimes on which one does your 5x go to, which one does your 1x go to. Because 5x times 2, oh, what am I doing? Oops. 5x times 2, I don't know if you saw that, but my screen changed for a moment, does equal 10x. And x times negative 4 creates a negative 4x, and 2 times negative 4 creates a negative 6. So my final factors of these, looking on the outside of my box, is x plus 2 and 5x minus 4. So you can see how this is a little bit different. The main thing is we have to take that first term and that last term and multiply them together, and then we have to use that box to get those outside pieces. It's not just going to be those factors. That 2 was not one of my two things that I came up with. Negative 4 was only one of those two things. So it is important on how we come up with these terms, and not just jumping straight to the answer like we're typically used to with that x squared just being my first term. So let's do one other example of that, and then we will end the video here. So I have negative 4x squared plus 19x plus 5. So the first thing I want to do, I draw my box and I start filling it in. So my top left-hand corner, I have my negative 4x squared. And then in my bottom right-hand quadrant, I'm going to have my constant of 5. I need to then multiply these two terms together. So negative 4x times 5 is going to give me my product of negative 20. And then my sum, once again, is going to be that middle term there. So my sum is going to be 19. So I need to think of two numbers that multiply to get negative 20, add to get 19. All right, so starting to think of negative 20, some factors of negative 20 are, once again, it's negative. It's negative, so I know I'm going to have a positive term and a negative term because I have that negative product. So some factors of 20 are 2 times 10. There's 4 times 5. I'm sure I'm missing one. A couple. There is, well, let's just see if either of these work. So I'm looking for a sum of 20. 2 and 10 can't combine to get 20 or 19 at all. I'm sorry. With one being positive, one being negative. 4 and 9 also can't combine to get 19 in any way. So what's my last factor that I'm missing? 20 times 1 is always a factor. 20 times 1. And can I combine that to get negative 19? If I do 20 times negative 1, that creates negative 20. And 20 plus negative 1 creates 19. So those are going to be my two pieces that I'm going to fill in the box. I'm going to have 20x in one spot. It doesn't matter which one I put it in. And I'm going to have negative 1x in the other spot. Once again, I could have these swapped. It shouldn't make a difference which one goes where. All right, now I need to start filling in the outside of my box. So I know to create my x squared, I have to have an x and an x. It just matters which of those x's might need to have that negative 4 along with it. All right, so looking negative 4 does not multiply to create negative 1, but it does multiply to create a 20. So I'm going to put this to be 4. And actually something that I do notice is looking, I have negatives in both of these rows, and and both of these rows are multiples of 4. So I'm actually going to put this one as negative 1 here. I'm going to make this negative 1x because both these terms are negative, and that'll make this a little bit easier for myself. And I'm going to leave this as just 4. So 4x times what creates 20x? 4x times 5 creates 20x. Negative 1x times what creates 1x? Well, negative 1x times just 1 creates negative 1x. And 5 times 1 creates 5. So I filled in my total box. So my two factors, once again, are 4x plus 1 and negative 1x plus 5. And that would be my answer for my problem. All right, so hopefully you can take a chance or take a shot at the delta math that is associated with this video. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will hopefully, fingers crossed, be back on Wednesday, and we can continue working on some factoring trinomials. But hopefully this stuff isn't too bad, and hopefully the box method makes these ones where I have the a being a different number a little bit easier than not easier than yesterday, because I know yesterday was really easy, but hopefully easier than what these anticipated to be.